It was a featured article in the New York Times, of all places, and the title, quote, "Hard Time for a Hot Commodity, the Prized New Mexico Chili," end quote. The article goes on to talk about how years of drought and other conditions have been threatening our state's signature crop. Chilies have to be picked by hand, as you know, and some farmers are finding trouble getting the help they need, and some are turning to more reliable, profitable crops like alfalfa, watermelon, all kinds of other things. What would New Mexico be without a certified New Mexico chili? And Diane, have we been taking this situation for granted a little too long here? Is that part of the problem here?
I very much agree with that statement, Gene. Yeah. I just think, oh my God, because I'm going, oh my God, I didn't realize that we have reached that bad a place.
It's a shocking article,
Yes, it was very shocking, and particularly when you see the New York Times doing it about New Mexico. But I look at it, and one of the things that struck me in the article was how families are cutting, I mean, like 75% of their planted area is being reduced into their crop production. And then the other point is that most of these are family businesses in many, many ways.
That's right.
And the young people aren't going into the family business.
Yeah, that's scary.
So that's...
I mentioned these other cash crops, pecans. That's our number one, in the state. And you can't blame farmers for looking at a piece of land and saying what's going to get me the most yield, literally financially, out of this situation. So how do we turn this around?
I mean, I think one of the things is everything that's going on in the country and in the state is sort of contained in that article. We have a commodity, but we've branded that commodity. We've made it valuable. It has real value. And the question is, will the urban senators and Congress, House members, come up with some sort of plan to help out a rural area, which I think they should. I think that we should look to preserve a family farm. I think that we should look to preserve a New Mexico brand. And one of the things that, you look at the rural New Mexico, we're very rural. We have 33,000 farms or small ranches. You cannot pick those up and ship them off to China. That is an economic driver that we should maintain. And if we need to make some investment in that as, taxpayers, and we elect legislators to do, we should make the investment. I mean, I think it's a good, solid investment. And, we should make sure that I think it's a brand, and I think it's a commodity worth protecting. We should make it so that farmers can benefit from it, because if it can only get bigger, more people seem to be liking chili.
That's right.
I mean, someone once said only in New Mexico is hotness, a spice or something. So we should continue that.
Well, the chili wars were no small thing in hindsight now when you think about it. You know what I mean? This is critical for us. And Tom, go ahead, please.
Just a quick observation. My sister worked for, a chef's sister worked for the chili guy in Bernalillo. And she would come home talking about the chefs she talked to in China or London or Florence or New York City or Chicago, and how they bought their chili from this small little company in Bernalillo, New Mexico, and they were buying Hatch chili.
Yeah, it's something. We have to protect this. And tell me, when you think about the one piece of the article that really distressed me, just really, I had to put it down, I actually walked away from it for a second, is the price pressure for our growers. They cannot increase their prices due to a lot of different things. Mexican competition, labor costs, water costs, all that kind of stuff. This puts them in a very, very difficult position when you really think about it. There are very few commodities where you're sort of ceilinged like that and you can't push. You see the problem? It's very hard for these guys.
Yeah, and having done a lot of work with companies that are engaged in the chili industry, I think that any type of assistance that the state can provide to protect, it's going to be very complex though, because you have you have three variables: water, weather, and labor, and you get to control one of those, labor. You don't control the water, you don't control the weather, and so perhaps that's where that key is. And as far as the alternative crops, I just have to say that the New York Times article was a great wake-up call, but watermelon is not an option for New Mexico. There's just not enough water.
Okay, thank you.
But onions, a great rotation with that particular crop. As far as the uniqueness of the New Mexico chili, there was a lot of great competition with Colorado, which is great. One of the things I learned through that process is that the Colorado chili is very different from the New Mexico chili in that it grows actually up on a vine as opposed to on a plant. It's also a lot smaller than the New Mexico chili. So, but the New Mexico chili has so much more flavor, and I think that the more we can protect it and promote it, the better off we'll be. But yeah, I think some relief. I don't know what that looks like.
That's right. right.
mechanized,
Exactly.
mechanized picking. I don't know.
Exactly. And Senator, when you think about it, the numbers are just brutal. 35,000 acres were planted in the 90s, and we're down to 8,400 acres at this point.
Yeah.
So the question, Dave brought this up initially, what do we need to do as a state? Is there a water policy we can put in place? Is there a more advertising money we could throw at these people? There's something more that we could certainly do here, it seems.
Well, I think you have to remember that the chili industry is one of the bigger agricultural industries in New Mexico, along with pecans. Right. The vast majority of New Mexico farmers are small farmers, and they do not receive the subsidies that chili growers have already received from NMSU, where there's been extensive research done on chili growing, varieties, hybridization, and also the chili industry and the pecan industry out of southern New Mexico has a very vigorous water lobby because they are dependent on water from Elephant Butte and the competing demands of Texas. We have to deliver a certain amount of water to Texas every year, and that means less and less water for agriculture. And in many ways, we have to ensure that all of our farmers are using efficient irrigation rather than flooding fields, rather than using the traditional ways of growing, which have yielded great results in the past, but are not sustainable for the future.
But this is also about identity, isn't it? It's not just about the hard commodity that comes in a crate and gets shipped out in a truck. Identity is a much different situation. So I ask again, Dave, is it a money issue? Do we need to backstop these folks and help them out here and help grow the consumer demand is what I'm getting at here.
Absolutely. We need to grow the consumer demand. But also, it's not just, if something is about money, you're probably on the wrong track. But I think the point should be is that, the chili is an identity of New Mexico, and save the chili, save the small farmer, save the small town. Right. That should be a goal. That is government policy that I think is easily implementable. It's going to cost some money, but everything costs money. Save the chili, save the farmer, save the small town. I think that is a good thing to do.
But everyone has to get in on this. The Chimayo growers will probably need to get a little something. Do you know what I mean? It's not just the hatch folks.
It's not just hatch folks.
Right.
No.
Well, and while you mentioned that the acreage is down, yields are actually up. And so it's important to have those two.
Why is that? Why is the yield up?
It's just more efficient processes, and the farming process in Chimayo is very different than that down in Hatch.
Right.
And and it was a good chili season. I thought it was. I mean, I have chili from Rosales and San Felipe Pueblo in my freezers.
There you go. Exactly right. Is there a real concern here, Senator Feldman, about this at the bottom line? They're going to lose this as an industrial crop. I mean,
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I was surprised at the whole article. I didn't realize, and I'm not sure whether this year has been dramatically worse than any others, or whether it's just a gradual. No, I don't want to even say decline, but a reaction to climate change, and to, and I think we've done as a state a very good job in promoting the chili industry. Certainly in the legislature, there's bills every time to either do a new slogan, a new subsidy to promote New Mexico chili versus Colorado chili. And it's worked. The demand has increased nationwide, internationally. It has increased. So we've got to try to put this in perspective. I'm not sure that there's that the chili industry is, as you say, in.
But let me take your point to a further place, though. The drought issue. I'm glad you brought it up because that was mentioned in the article. Of course, is one of the big problems in climate change. I said more precisely. We are going to be at ground zero right here in New Mexico for climate change in the southern part of the state, especially in another 30 years. It's going to be a real problem, the kind of heat. And as the article points out, once you get above a certain amount of degrees at night and during the day, these plants don't like it. So, do we move indoors? Do we move further north? That was actually suggested in the article that we're going to have to get to
altitude. You have to think about the altitude too. And Hatch is 4,000. Chimayo is what, 6,000 feet?
Sure.
Yeah.
And so that's a factor that you can't change.
Right.
So to me, this whole thing about Chile and New Mexico, this is an asset that we have.
Yeah.
It's not going away. We have to manage it properly, and I think we're doing that in terms of water policy, in terms of promotion through our economic development department. But it's not easy with climate change. And particularly the water situation.
Right.
But I think the article has brought it back to the forefront. Ever so often, you need to take a look at what you're doing and say, are there enhancements we need to do?
That's right.
What can we be preparing for 5 years from now?
That's right.
So
That's right.
But I also think it's important to recognize there's an opportunity here. We have an asset, the chili growers. We are going to look at the problem. We're going to look for a solution, and we can say to the other states and to other businesses that want to come to New Mexico, we know how to fix things because we looked at this. We understood that it was an asset that we needed. We tried this. It worked, or it didn't work. We tried something else. I think that's important to say. Politics is not just about budgets and everything. Sometimes it's about ideas and leadership. We should take the opportunity to make sure this asset is well protected.
Good last note there. Going to take a break before this group comes back to talk about safety and the bus rapid transit system here in Albuquerque.